The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide and tall, its walls made of crystal that caught and held the light from 1,000 distant stars. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated seats, arranged in circles that rose higher and higher toward the domed ceiling. At the center of it all stood a simple podium, and behind that podium stood Hyun. He was not a tall man by human standards, and among the gathered aliens, he looked even smaller. His dark suit was plain, his hair was neatly combed, and his hands rested calmly at his sides. There was no anger in his eyes, no tension in his shoulders. He simply stood there, waiting for the chamber to grow quiet. The council leader, a being called Vexus, whose species had 4 arms and skin like polished stone, finally raised one hand for silence. The murmuring died down. Vexus looked at Hyun with what might have been amusement or boredom. It was hard to tell with his kind. "Ambassador Hyun," Vexus said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You requested this special session. We have granted it, though many here wonder why. Humanity has brought no new proposals, no complaints we have not heard before. What is it you wish to say?" Hyun took a slow breath. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed. A few were not even paying attention, absorbed in their data tablets or whispering to aides. "Thank you, Council Leader," Hyun said quietly. His voice was calm and steady, carried by the chamber's speakers to every corner. "I will not take much of your time. I have come to deliver a simple message. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Council." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then someone laughed. It started small, just a chuckle from somewhere in the upper rows, but it spread quickly. Soon, dozens of representatives were laughing or making their species equivalent of amused sounds. Vexus held up a hand again, though his own expression showed something like humor. "Ambassador Hyun, surely you are not serious. Where would humanity go? You have 70 colony systems, all deeply integrated into galactic trade and infrastructure. Your people rely on Council medical technology, Council jump gates, Council protection. This is obviously a negotiating tactic." "It is not," Hyun said simply. "We are leaving. As of this moment, all human representatives are withdrawing from Council positions. Our delegates, our scientists, our engineers, our medical staff, all of them are returning to human space. We will close our borders. We will no longer participate in Council affairs." A representative from the Kelthran species, a being with blue scales and too many teeth, stood up. "This is ridiculous. You cannot simply leave." "What about your obligations? Your trade agreements? Your defense pacts?" "All agreements will be honored until their natural expiration dates," Hyun replied. "We will break no contracts, but we will not renew them. Any human who wishes to remain in Council space may do so as an individual. But Earth and all human governments are withdrawing our membership." Vexus leaned forward, his stone-like face showing the first sign of actual interest. "And why, Ambassador? What has prompted this dramatic decision?" Hyun was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was still calm, but there was something underneath it now, something harder. For 300 years, humanity has been a member of this council. In that time, we have contributed greatly. Human engineers designed the current jump gate network. Human doctors developed treatments for 17 different plagues. Human mathematicians solved problems that had stumped council scientists for centuries. Human farmers taught 30 worlds how to grow food in harsh climates. He paused, looking around the chamber again. "And in return, we have been dismissed, ignored, and exploited. Every major human contribution has been credited to council research teams. Every time we ask for fair representation, we are told we are too young, too aggressive, too emotional. Every time human colonies are attacked by pirates, Council defense forces arrive too late or not at all. We are good enough to work, but not good enough to be truly heard." A Thalrin representative, a female named Mireille with silver skin and large dark eyes, shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She did not laugh like the others. Vexus waved a hand dismissively. "Every species feels underappreciated at times, Ambassador. This is the nature of a large organization. If you have specific grievances, we can address them through the proper channels. We have tried the proper channels for 300 years, Hyun said. We are done trying. We are leaving." "You will regret this," said a Vortan representative, his reptilian face twisted in what might have been contempt. "Without the Council, humanity will be vulnerable. You will fall to the first serious threat that comes your way. Perhaps, Hyun acknowledged. But that will be our choice to make and our consequences to face. Vexus stood up, his full height imposing. Very well. If humanity wishes to isolate itself, so be it. But do not come back in 6 months or a year begging to be readmitted. The Council has existed for 10,000 years. It will survive without you. I am certain it will, Hyun said quietly. He bowed once, a formal gesture, and then turned and walked toward the chamber exit. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. As he reached the door, Vexus called out, Ambassador Hyun! When you realize this mistake, who should we expect to hear from? Hyun stopped and looked back over his shoulder. No one, Council Leader. We are done talking. Then he walked through the door and it closed behind him with a soft hiss. In the chamber, the silence lasted for perhaps 10 seconds before the noise erupted. Representatives shouted questions, made accusations, demanded explanations. Vexus called for order, but it took several minutes to restore calm. When things finally settled, a young aide approached Vexus with a data tablet. Council Leader, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human personnel are leaving their posts. Research facilities, medical centers, engineering stations, everywhere. They are all departing. Vexus took the tablet and scrolled through the reports. His expression did not change. Let them go. We will replace them easily enough. Humanity always did overestimate its own importance. But Mireille, the Thalran representative, sat quietly in her seat, her dark eyes troubled. She had worked with humans before, had seen their work up close. She thought about the Jumpgate network, the medical treatments, the agricultural techniques. She thought about how many things, big and small, had human fingerprints on them. She pulled out her own tablet and began making notes. Something about this did not feel right. Humans did not do things without thinking them through. They were methodical, patient, thorough. If they were leaving, they had a reason. A good reason. Around her, other representatives were already moving on to other business, already forgetting about the humans and their quiet departure. But Mirai kept thinking, kept worrying. She could not shake the feeling that the Council had just made a terrible mistake. Across the galaxy, in 70 star systems, the lights in human colonies stayed on. Life continued as normal, but something had changed. Every human ship docked at Council stations began undocking. Every human living in Council territory received a message: come home or stay as an individual. But the governments were done. In communication centers on 100 worlds, human operators shut down long-range transmitters one by one. The channels that had carried human voices to Council space for 3 centuries went dark, and humanity, as Hyun had promised, departed quietly. 3 months had passed since the humans left. For the first few weeks, the Council had barely noticed. Life went on as usual. Ships still traveled through jump gates. People still went to hospitals. Food still moved from agricultural worlds to city planets. Everything seemed fine. Then the problems started small. Miri sat in her office on the Council headquarters station, reviewing reports on her data tablet. She had been doing this every day since the humans left, looking for patterns, looking for trouble, and she was finding it. The first report was from a medical facility on Kelris Prime. Neurological scanner experiencing calibration errors. Technician unable to resolve issue. Equipment manufacturer says this model requires specialized maintenance protocol developed by human medical team. The second report came from a farming world called Thesson. Crop yields down 18% this season. Soil treatment process not working as expected. Original implementation team included human agricultural specialists. Current team unable to replicate results. The third report was from the Jumpgate Network Authority. Minor timing discrepancies detected in 7 gate pairs. Nothing critical yet, but deviations from baseline parameters are increasing. Mirai set down her tablet and rubbed her eyes. She had dozens of reports like these now, from all over Council space. Little problems, small failures, things not working quite right. Individually, none of them seemed serious, but together they formed a picture that worried her. She stood up and walked to the window of her office. Outside, she could see the vast expanse of the station and beyond it, the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity had drawn a curtain across its borders and gone silent. No messages came out of human space. No ships came or went. It was as if 70 star systems had simply vanished. Mirai's door chimed. "Enter," she called. A young Kelthran male named Taman hurried in. He worked in the station's maintenance division and he looked stressed. His blue scales were dark with worry. "Counselor Mirai," he said quickly. "I apologize for coming directly, but I did not know who else to tell. We have a serious problem with the station's environmental systems." "What kind of problem?" Mirai asked. "The air recycling processors in sections 7 through 12 are failing. Not all at once, but one by one they are breaking down. Our maintenance teams cannot fix them. The systems are too complex." Taman pulled out his own tablet and showed her a schematic. These processors were installed 15 years ago. They were designed by a human engineering firm. The documentation says regular maintenance requires specific knowledge of human computational architecture. Mirai felt a cold weight in her stomach. "How long until those sections become uninhabitable?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. We can reroute life support from other sections temporarily. But that will strain those systems too. And Counselor, these same processors are installed on 40% of Council stations. Have you reported this to the Council leadership? Taman nodded. Yes. They told me to hire independent contractors to fix the problem. But, Counselor, I have contacted 12 different engineering firms. None of them understand these systems well enough to repair them properly. Mirai thought for a moment. What if we contact the humans? Ask them for help with the technical specifications? I tried, Taman said quietly. I sent messages to every human engineering contact I had. None of them responded. It is as if they do not exist anymore. After Taman left, Mirai sat down at her desk and opened a communication channel to Council Leader Vexus. It took several minutes for him to respond. When his stone face appeared on her screen, he looked annoyed. Counselor Mirai, what requires my attention? Council Leader, we need to discuss the situation with humanity's departure. I have been collecting reports and there are problems appearing across the entire Council space. Medical equipment failures, agricultural issues, infrastructure problems, all of them connected to human-designed systems or human expertise. Vexus waved a hand dismissively. Minor technical difficulties. These things happen, we will adapt. With respect, Council Leader, I do not think these are minor. The problems are getting worse and they are spreading. We need to take this seriously. What would you have me do? Vexus asked. Contact the humans and beg them to come back? They made their choice. We will replace their contributions with our own people. But that is the issue, Mirai said carefully. I have been looking at the records. Humans were involved in far more projects than we realized. They were not just helping. In many cases, they were the primary developers, the key designers, the essential maintenance personnel. We have been taking credit for their work for so long that we forgot how much we actually depended on them. Vexus was silent for a moment. Then he said, Your concerns are noted, Counselor. But the Council has faced challenges before. We will face this one as well. Focus on finding solutions, not dwelling on problems. The screen went dark. Mirai sat back in her chair, frustrated. Vexus did not understand. Or perhaps he understood and simply did not want to admit the truth. Over the next 2 months, the situation grew worse. The problems were no longer small or easy to ignore. On Velthro Station, a major trading hub, the cargo sorting systems crashed. Thousands of containers sat unmoved in warehouses because no one could figure out how to restart the automated systems. The station administrator discovered that the entire logistics network had been designed by a human team 30 years ago, and every major update since then had been done by humans as well. On the medical world of Sanctuary, a plague broke out among the Dravith population. It was a virus that had been eliminated 20 years ago, but now it was back. The vaccine that had worked before no longer worked. After days of desperate research, the medical staff found old records showing that a human doctor named Borum had modified the vaccine formula every few years to keep up with viral mutations. Without those updates, the vaccine was useless. The jump gate network began experiencing serious problems. Gates would activate late or not at all. Ships found themselves stranded in deep space, waiting hours or days for rescue. The jump gate authority pulled up the original design documents and found that the entire network had been built on mathematical models developed by a human physicist named Deho. Current engineers understood how to operate the gates, but not how to troubleshoot the underlying systems. Mirai compiled all of this information into a detailed report. She added economic projections showing how the cascade of failures would affect trade, food distribution, medical care, and transportation. She made the report as clear and undeniable as possible. Then she requested another meeting with Council Leader Vexus. This time she was not alone. 3 other counselors came with her, all of them carrying their own evidence of the crisis. Vexus received them in his private chamber, a room filled with artifacts from 100 worlds. He looked tired, Mirai thought, more tired than she had ever seen him. "I know why you are here," Vexus said before any of them could speak. "I have seen the reports too. The whole council has seen them by now." "Then you understand the severity of the situation," Mirai said. "We need to contact humanity. We need to ask them to help us." "No," Vexus said flatly. "Council leader." "No," Vexus repeated, his voice harder. "I will not crawl to the humans and admit weakness. The council has existed for 10,000 years. We have survived wars, plagues, and cosmic disasters. We will survive this too. If we go to humanity now, we will appear weak. Other species will question our authority. The whole structure of the council could collapse." "It is collapsing anyway," another counselor said, "but not from asking for help. From refusing to admit we made a mistake." Vexus stood up, all 4 arms spread wide. "We made no mistake. The humans chose to leave. They abandoned their commitments, their responsibilities. Whatever problems we face now are their fault, not ours. I will not reward their selfishness by begging them to return." Mirai felt a surge of frustration. "This is not about pride, Council Leader. This is about survival. Millions of people are suffering because systems are failing. If we do not act soon, then we will fix the systems ourselves," Vexus interrupted. "I am authorizing emergency funding for research and repair efforts. We will hire the best engineers, the best scientists, the best minds from every member species. We will solve these problems without humanity." The meeting ended badly. Mirai left feeling hollow and afraid. She could see the path they were on, and it did not lead anywhere good. That night, alone in her quarters, she did something she knew might be dangerous. She composed a message to humanity. She did not know if anyone would receive it, or if anyone would respond. But she had to try. "This is Counselor Mirai of the Thauran delegation," she wrote. "I know you have no reason to listen to council representatives anymore, but I am writing as someone who worked with your people and respected them. The council is in trouble. We need help. We need your expertise, your knowledge. Please, if anyone receives this message, please respond." She sent the message to every human contact she had ever known, every address she could find in old records. Then she waited. Days passed. No response came. The silence from human space remained absolute and complete, and across the galaxy, more systems began to fail. The first year after humanity's departure ended with chaos spreading like fire across the galaxy. What had started as minor inconveniences had grown into a crisis that threatened the foundation of galactic civilization itself. Mirai stood in the council chamber, but it looked different now. Half the seats were empty. Representatives from smaller species had stopped attending meetings because they could not afford the travel anymore. The Jumpgate network was so unreliable that a journey that once took hours might now take days or weeks, assuming the ship arrived at all. Council Leader Vexus looked different too. His stone-like skin had developed cracks, stress lines that showed his age and worry. He moved more slowly now, as if each gesture required great effort. "We must discuss the food situation," said Councillor Wren, a Vortan whose scales had lost their usual shine. 17 agricultural worlds are reporting critical crop failures. The farming techniques that worked for decades have suddenly stopped being effective. Without human agricultural specialists to guide us, we cannot maintain the yields we need. "What about the emergency supplies?" Vexus asked, running low. "We have perhaps 3 months of reserve food for the affected populations. After that?" Wren did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Mirai spoke up. "I have been studying the old agricultural records. The humans did not just teach other species how to farm. They constantly adapted the techniques, making small changes based on soil conditions, climate patterns, local biology. Every few months they would adjust something. We have been using their last instructions, but those were designed for conditions that existed a year ago. The galaxy changes. The techniques needed to change with it. Can we not simply hire agricultural experts from other species?" another counselor asked. "We have tried," Wren said. "None of them understand the systems well enough. The humans had a way of seeing connections between things that others miss. They understood how everything fit together." Vexus slammed a hand on his desk. We cannot keep saying the humans were better. We must find our own solutions. But they were better, Mirai said quietly. At least at certain things. That is not an insult to other species. It is just a fact. And by refusing to admit it, we are letting people suffer. Before Vexus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice announced, "Environmental system failure in sections 20 through 35. All personnel evacuate immediately." The counselors ran from the chamber. Mirai followed the crowd toward the emergency shelters, her heart pounding. This was the fourth major station failure this month. How many more could they survive? In the shelter, packed together with hundreds of other station residents, Mirai pulled out her tablet. She accessed the maintenance logs, scrolling through the technical data. The environmental systems had been running on patched repairs and jury-rigged solutions for months now. Each fix was temporary, barely holding things together until the next crisis. A young engineer named Yuna sat down next to her. Yuna was human, one of the few who had chosen to stay in council space when her people left. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "It is going to collapse," Yuna said quietly. "Not just this station. All of them. The infrastructure is too interconnected. When one major system fails completely, it will cascade into others. Can you fix it?" Mirai asked. Yuna laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Me? Alone? No. These systems were designed by teams of hundreds of engineers working for years. I can patch things, delay the failures, but I cannot rebuild everything by myself. What if we contacted the human governments, asked them for help?" "They will not come," Yuna said. "I have tried contacting people I know back home. The few who responded told me the same thing. Humanity is done with the council. We gave 300 years of service and got nothing but contempt in return. Why would we come back to fix problems that the council thinks it can solve without us?" "Because people are dying," Mirai said. "People were dying when the council ignored human colonies being attacked by pirates," Yuna replied. "People were dying when the council took credit for human medical breakthroughs, while humans did the actual work for low pay. The council never cared about that suffering. Why should humans care about this suffering?" Mirai had no answer. She sat in silence, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that was happening now. The all-clear signal finally sounded 3 hours later. The environmental crisis had been contained, barely. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the next crisis hit. Over the following months, the situation deteriorated beyond what anyone had imagined possible. The medical crisis reached catastrophic levels. Hospitals across the galaxy were filled with patients suffering from diseases that should have been easily treatable. Equipment broke down and could not be repaired. Medicine stockpiles ran out. Doctors trained in human medical techniques found themselves unable to teach those techniques to others because so much of the knowledge had been passed through hands-on training, not written documentation. A plague swept through 3 systems, killing millions. It was a disease that human doctors had eliminated 40 years ago. But without their regular monitoring and vaccine updates, it had come back stronger than ever. The economy collapsed. Trade between systems became so difficult and expensive that many worlds began trying to become self-sufficient. But most colonies had been designed to specialize, to produce 1 or 2 things and trade for everything else. Trying to suddenly produce all their own food, medicine, and manufactured goods was nearly impossible. Riots broke out on dozens of worlds. Hungry, sick, and frightened people demanded answers from their governments. Why had the council let this happen? Why were they suffering? Some species began talking about leaving the council, just as humanity had done. If the council could not protect them or provide for them, what was the point of membership? The Jumpgate network, the backbone of galactic civilization, was failing. Gates would shut down without warning, sometimes for days at a time. Ships were lost in deep space. The network authority estimated that within another year, perhaps half of all gates would be non-functional. Mirai attended an emergency session of the full council, the first one in months. Even with the crisis, only about 2/3 of the representatives showed up. The rest could not make the journey or were dealing with emergencies in their home systems. Vexus stood before them, and for the first time, Mirai saw something new in his expression. It was not anger or frustration. It was fear. "We face the greatest crisis in council history," Vexus said. "I have resisted saying this, but I can no longer deny the truth. We need help. We need the humans. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives shouted in agreement. Others protested, saying it was too late or that humanity would never return. Vexus raised all four hands for silence. I am proposing that we send a formal delegation to human space. We will ask them to return and help us restore the systems that are failing. We will offer them better terms, better representation, whatever they want. Will they even listen? Someone asked. I do not know, Vexus admitted. But we must try. The alternative is the complete collapse of galactic civilization. A vote was called. It was not unanimous, but it passed. The council would reach out to humanity and ask for help. Mireille was chosen to lead the delegation. She was one of the few counselors who had consistently argued for reaching out to humanity, and she had personal contacts with some humans who had stayed in council space. As she prepared for the journey, Yuna came to see her off. They might not listen, the young human engineer said. You hurt us badly, not just practically but emotionally. You made us feel worthless. I know, Mireille said. All I can do is tell them the truth. We were wrong. We need them, and we are sorry. Will you mean it? Yuna asked. Or will this just be words to get what you want? Mireille looked at the young woman and felt a wave of shame. How many times had the council made promises to humans only to break them later? How many times had they said the right words but never changed their actions? I will mean it, Mireille said finally. And I will do everything in my power to make sure the council means it too. I cannot promise that will be enough, but it is all I have to offer. Yuna nodded slowly. Then good luck, counselor. You are going to need it. The ship that would carry Mireille and her delegation to human space was one of the few reliable vessels left. It would take weeks to reach the nearest human system. Weeks of traveling through space that felt emptier and darker than it ever had before. As the ship jumped through the failing gate network, Mireille looked out at the stars and wondered what they would find when they reached humanity's borders. Would they find people willing to help? Or would they find a species that had learned to live without the galaxy that had rejected them? She did not know, but she knew that whatever humanity's answer was, the council would have to accept it. They had no other choice. The age of council dominance was over. What would replace it, Mireille could not say, but she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The journey to human space took 3 weeks, and every day of it filled Mireille with growing anxiety. She spent her time reviewing files, preparing speeches, trying to find the right words to say to people who had every reason to refuse to listen. Her delegation was small. Just 5 people, including herself. There was Councillor Wren, who had finally admitted that his people could not solve the agricultural crisis alone. There was a young Kelthran diplomat named Sumi, who had studied human culture and language. There was a Thalran doctor named Jiwan, who had worked alongside human medical teams for years. And there was Yuna, the human engineer who had agreed to come along, though she made it clear she was not speaking for humanity, only for herself. When they finally reached the border of human space, they found something unexpected. A defense grid. Automated stations surrounded the human systems, watching and waiting. The delegation's ship was scanned, analyzed, and held at the border for 6 hours before a message finally came through. Council vessel, you are not authorized to enter human space. State your purpose. Mireille stepped forward to the communication console. This is Councillor Mireille of the Thalran delegation. We are an official council diplomatic mission. We request permission to speak with human government representatives about matters of great importance. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned. Stand by. 4 more hours passed. The delegation waited in tense silence. Finally, the communication console lit up again. Council delegation, you are authorized to proceed to the 3rd planet in this system. You will land at the coordinates we are transmitting. You will not deviate from the flight path. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. The ship moved forward, guided by the automated defense systems. As they flew deeper into human space, Mireille looked out the windows and was surprised by what she saw. The human systems looked prosperous. Space stations gleamed with fresh construction. Ships moved efficiently along well-maintained trade routes. Colonies on various planets showed signs of expansion and growth. Whatever struggles the Council was facing, humanity did not seem to be sharing them. They landed on a world called New Sejong, a major human colony world. The spaceport was clean and organized. Human workers moved cargo with efficient precision. Everything worked smoothly, so different from the chaos of council space. A small delegation of humans met them at the landing pad. At their head was a woman in her 50s wearing a simple gray suit. Her dark hair was pulled back and her eyes were calm but guarded. "I am G1," she said. "I serve as the diplomatic coordinator for the United Human Colonies. Welcome to New Sejong. Please follow me." They were taken to a government building in the colony's main city. The building was not ornate like council structures. It was practical and functional, but somehow more impressive because of that. Everything suggested a society that valued efficiency and results over appearance. G1 led them to a conference room with a large window overlooking the city. She gestured for them to sit, then sat across from them. Two other humans joined her, but they did not introduce themselves. They simply sat and watched. "You wanted to speak with us," Ji-won said. "Speak," Mirai took a breath. She had practiced this speech many times during the journey, but now, faced with actual humans who had been hurt by the council's actions, the words felt inadequate. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," she began. "I know humanity has no reason to trust the council, and I understand that our presence here is probably not welcome. But I must speak truthfully about the situation." She pulled out a data tablet and placed it on the table. "The council is collapsing. Infrastructure is failing across the galaxy. Medical systems, agricultural networks, transportation, communications, all of it is breaking down. We estimate that within a year, perhaps less, galactic civilization as we know it will cease to function. Billions of people are suffering. Millions have already died." Jiwon's expression did not change. "And you want humanity to fix it?" "Yes," Mirai admitted. "We need your help." "Why should we help?" one of the other humans asked. "You made it clear for 300 years that you did not value our contributions. You took credit for our work, ignored our problems, and treated us as useful labor but not as equals. Now that your systems are failing, now you come asking for help?" Mirai felt shame burn in her chest, but she did not look away. "You are right. Everything you say is true. The council wronged humanity in every way you describe. We took your people for granted. We exploited your talents while denying you proper recognition. We failed you. So this is an apology?" Ji-won asked. "Yes, but I know an apology is not enough. Words are cheap. What matters is action, change, accountability." Ren leaned forward. "We are prepared to offer humanity full council membership with equal representation. You would have the same voting power as the founding species. You would have seats in all major committees. Your people would be properly compensated for their work, with credits going directly to human governments and institutions." "You mean the things we asked for repeatedly over 300 years and were always denied?" Ji-won said quietly. The silence in the room was heavy. Finally, the doctor named Ji-won from the council delegation spoke. She had been quiet until now, but her voice trembled with emotion when she finally said, "I worked with human doctors for 15 years. I saw how brilliant they were, how dedicated, how much they cared about helping people. And I saw how the council treated them like assistants, like helpers, never as equals. I watched human colleagues come up with breakthrough treatments only to see council officials claim credit. I said nothing. I did nothing. And I am ashamed of that. If there is any way to make things right, we must try." Ji-won, the human coordinator, studied the Thalran doctor for a long moment. Then she looked at Mirai. "What you are asking for is not simple technical assistance. You want us to send thousands of engineers, doctors, scientists, and specialists back into council space. You want us to rebuild systems that took centuries to create. You want us to save a civilization that rejected us." "Yes," Mirai said. "I know it is asking too much, but I am asking anyway because there is no one else to ask, and because despite everything I believe humanity is better than us. We acted with pride and cruelty, but humans, in my experience, act with compassion and pragmatism. You help because it is the right thing to do, not because you expect something in return. Do not romanticize us," Ji-won said sharply. "Humans are not saints. We are just as capable of cruelty and selfishness as any species. The difference is that we learned from our own history. We made terrible mistakes on our home world, and we swore to do better when we reached the stars. But that does not mean we are obligated to save people who hurt us." "I know," Mirai said. "I am not asking you to save us because you are inherently good. I am asking because billions of innocent people who had nothing to do with the council's decisions, are suffering. Children are starving. The sick are dying. Colonies are falling into chaos. Most of these people never wronged humanity. They are just victims of their leaders' mistakes. Ji-won stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the city for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was tired. Do you know why Ambassador Hyun walked out of the council chamber so calmly? Why he did not shout or make threats or demands? No, Mireille admitted. Because he knew this day would come. Not the specific details, but the general outcome. Human analysts predicted it. They ran models showing what would happen if humanity withdrew from council space. Every model showed the same thing. Systemic collapse within a year. We knew, and we left anyway. The words hit Mireille like a physical blow. You knew? You knew this would happen? Of course we knew. We built those systems. We maintained them. We understood them better than anyone. We knew that without us they would fail. Ji-won turned back to face the delegation. We left anyway because we were tired of being used. We left because we hoped that maybe, when you saw what happened, you would finally understand our value. Not our value as workers or tools, but our value as equals. We understand now, Mireille said quietly. We understand what we lost. What we threw away. Do you? Ji-won asked. Or are you just desperate? Will you treat us as equals when the crisis is over? Or will you go back to old patterns once the systems are running again? Mireille thought about that question very carefully before answering. She thought about Vexus and the other council leaders, about the pride and arrogance that had brought them to this point. I cannot promise that everyone in the council has learned this lesson, she said slowly. I cannot promise that there will not be people who resent human power or try to undermine it. But I can promise that I have learned, and I will fight to make sure the council changes, not just with words but with actions. Ji-won studied her for a long moment. Then she said, wait here. I need to discuss this with other human leaders. It may take several days. The delegation was given comfortable quarters in a government facility. For 3 days they waited. Mireille spent the time walking around the colony, with guards following at a discreet distance. She saw human children playing in parks. She saw markets full of food and goods. She saw hospitals where the sick were being cared for efficiently. She saw a civilization that worked. Mireille leaned forward, her heart pounding. What are your conditions? Ji-won placed a data tablet on the table between them. First, full and public acknowledgement of what the council did. Not a private apology. Not a quiet agreement behind closed doors. The council must publicly admit that it systematically exploited human labor, stole credit for human innovations, and treated humanity as second-class members for 3 centuries. This acknowledgement must be broadcast across the entire galaxy. Ren shifted uncomfortably. That will be difficult. Many council leaders will resist such a public admission. Then let them resist, Ji-won said coldly. And let their people continue to suffer while they protect their pride. This is not negotiable. If the council cannot admit what it did wrong, then it will never truly change. Mireille nodded slowly. I understand. What else? Second, complete restructuring of council governance. Humanity will have equal representation with the founding species. But more than that, the council must establish an independent oversight committee with representatives from all member species, including the smallest and least powerful. This committee will have the authority to investigate complaints of exploitation or discrimination. It will have real power, not just advisory status. That will require changing laws that have stood for thousands of years, another council delegate said. Yes, it will, Ji-won agreed. Change is difficult, but it is necessary. Third, she continued, all past human contributions must be properly credited and documented. Every medical breakthrough, every engineering innovation, every scientific discovery that had human involvement must be corrected in the historical records. And the people who actually did the work must be publicly recognized, even if they have passed away. Their families, their communities, they deserve to know the truth. Mireille felt tears forming in her eyes. This was more than she had hoped for, and less than humanity deserved. Yes, we will do all of this. What else? Fourth, financial compensation. The council must establish a fund to compensate humanity for 3 centuries of stolen credit and underpaid labor. The amount will be determined by independent auditors, not by the council itself. This money will go toward human education, research, and infrastructure. That could bankrupt some council systems, Ren said quietly. Then those systems should have thought about that before stealing from us, Jiwan replied. Justice has a price. If you are not willing to pay it, then you do not truly want justice. The room fell silent. Mirai looked at her fellow delegates. She saw fear in their eyes, worry about how the council would react to these demands. But she also saw shame and understanding and acceptance. We agree, Mirai said. All of it. We will bring these conditions to the full council and fight for their acceptance. Jiwan studied her carefully. You understand that this will not be easy? That some council members will refuse? That this may tear the council apart? Let it be torn apart, Mirai said, surprising herself with her own vehemence. An organization built on exploitation and lies does not deserve to survive. If the council can change, if it can become something better, then it should survive. If it cannot change, then it should die, and something new should take its place. A small smile appeared on Jiwan's face, the first sign of warmth Mirai had seen from her. Perhaps there is hope after all. Very well. We will begin preparing teams to return to council space. But understand this. Our people will work under human command. We will not place them under council authority again. Human engineers will fix the systems, but they will do it their way, on their schedule. Human doctors will treat the sick, but they will set their own protocols. We will help, but we will not submit. I would not expect anything else, Mirai said. They left New Sejong with a convoy of human ships following behind. The journey back to council space felt different from the journey out. There was hope now, but also fear. Fear of what would happen when they presented humanity's conditions to the council. When they arrived at council headquarters, Mirai was shocked by how much worse things had gotten in just a few weeks. The station was running on emergency power. Half of the docking bays were non-functional. People in the corridors looked thin and tired, their faces marked by stress and hunger. An emergency council session was called immediately. The chamber that had once held hundreds of representatives now held perhaps 70. The rest could not make the journey, or their governments had collapsed entirely. Vexus sat in his chair, looking ancient and fragile. When he saw Mirai enter, something like relief crossed his face. Counselor Mirai, do you bring us hope? I bring humanity's answer, Mirai said. She stood at the central podium, the same place where Hyun had stood over a year ago. The circle had completed itself, she thought. Humanity has agreed to help us, but they have conditions. She outlined everything. The public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, the restructuring of governance, the crediting of past achievements, the financial compensation. With each point, she watched the reactions of the assembled counselors. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked angry or resistant. But most just looked resigned, understanding that they had no choice. When she finished, the chamber erupted in noise. Counselors shouted at each other, argued, debated. Vexus led it, continued for several minutes before raising his hands for silence. These conditions are harsh, he said slowly. They will be costly. They will humble us. They will require us to admit mistakes that some of us still do not want to acknowledge. He paused, looking around the chamber. But I have spent the last year watching our civilization crumble. I have seen people die because we were too proud to ask for help. I have seen the fruits of our arrogance and our cruelty. And I am tired. I am tired of defending the indefensible. I am tired of pretending we were right when we were so clearly wrong. The chamber had gone completely silent. Counselors stared at Vexus in shock. This was not the leader they knew, the one who had always defended council pride above all else. Humanity's conditions are harsh, Vexus continued. But they are just. We wronged them. We must make it right. I call for a vote. All who support accepting humanity's conditions, signal your agreement. One by one, hands were raised. Not all of them, but most. Enough. The motion passes, Vexus said. We will accept humanity's terms. Counselor Mirai, inform the humans that we agree. The next few months were chaotic but hopeful. Human teams arrived in council space and immediately went to work. They came with their own equipment, their own supplies, their own chain of command. They did not ask permission or wait for council approval. They simply did what needed to be done. A young human woman named Ji-won led the medical teams. She was brilliant and fierce, and she did not tolerate interference from council officials. When a hospital administrator tried to tell her how to organize her staff, she simply said, "I am here to save lives, not follow your rules. Get out of my way." Human engineers descended on failing stations and began the slow work of rebuilding infrastructure. They trained local workers, teaching them not just how to fix things but how to understand the systems. No more secret knowledge, no more proprietary techniques. Everything was documented, explained, made accessible. Human agricultural specialists traveled to struggling colonies and worked with local farmers. They shared techniques that had taken centuries to develop, freely and without reservation. Crop yields began to improve, food became available again, and humanity kept its word about the public acknowledgement. Every week, broadcasts went out, across the galaxy, detailing another human contribution that had been credited to council teams. Scientists who had died in obscurity were finally recognized. Engineers whose names had been erased from records were restored to their rightful place in history. It was humiliating for the council, but it was necessary. Mirai worked tirelessly on the governance restructuring. She met with representatives from species both large and small, building a coalition to support the changes. She faced fierce resistance from some of the older, more traditional councilors. But the weight of public opinion was on her side. People across the galaxy had seen what happened when the council put pride before pragmatism. They did not want to repeat that mistake. 6 months after the human teams arrived, the new council charter was ratified. It included provisions for equal representation, independent oversight, and protection against exploitation. It was not perfect, but it was better. Much better. On the day the charter was signed, Mirai found herself standing outside the council chamber with Ji-won, the human coordinator who had first heard their plea for help. "Do you think this will last?" Mirai asked. "Or will people forget once the crisis is over?" Ji-won thought about that for a moment. Some will forget. Some will resent the changes. But enough people will remember. Enough people will fight to preserve what we have built here. That is all we can ask for. "Thank you," Mirai said quietly, "for coming back, for helping us, for giving us another chance." "Do not thank me yet," Ji-won said. "The real test comes now. Can you maintain these changes? Can you remain humble when you are no longer desperate? Can you treat others as equals when you have power again?" "I will try," Mirai said. "Every day I will try." Then perhaps there is hope for the council after all. A year after humanity's return, the worst of the crisis had passed. Systems were functioning again.